So friends, we are digesting into the new curriculum in our world affairs. So our scenario item goes, the French Revolution of 1789 took place in France and it changed many things, politically, socially, and economically. A conference has been organized to discuss how the revolution changed things. A seminar has been organized to reflect on the changes in France. Task: what lessons can leaders learn from the French Revolution? So we are going to go deep into the changes leaders should learn from the French Revolution. So we are saying the French Revolution of 1789 was a fundamental change politically, socially, and economically. It sparked off on the 5th May 1789 during the reign of Louis XVI. The French Revolution was staged by the unprivileged class, third class of the peasants and the bourgeoisie, against the privileged class of the nobles and the clergy. The French Revolution occurred in 3 phases and lasted for about 10 years. These phases include the following: 1789-1791, peaceful stage. Then 1792 to 1794, violent stage or reign of terror. Then 1795 to 99, directory government or middle class. So we are realizing leaders should learn these lessons from the French Revolution of 1789. Number 1, leaders should emphasize the importance of fair taxation. So we are saying today, for the current leaders to avoid the same situation that happened in France, should call for the importance of fair taxation, where people should pay taxes depending on the amount of money they have, not making the unprivileged to pay a lot of money in form of taxes when others are not what? Paying. Because it was this situation that made the third estate, who were paying so many taxes, to rise up in large numbers. Mind you, there were 32 millions, there were 23 millions. The nobles and the clergy were 2 millions. And they rose up and they staged a what? A revolution. So if leaders are to avoid the same situation like that happened in France, should agitate for fair taxation what? System. Because through fair taxation system, people will not rise up and stage a what? A revolution. Another one, leaders should address social inequality, where the system of dividing people into classes, where others on top, others at a very low level, should come to an end. Because it was as a result of the classification of the people into first, second, and third estate that annoyed the members of the third estate who were underprivileged, and they rose up in large numbers. There are 23 millions against the nobles and the clergy who were 2 millions. So if leaders are to avoid the same situation, they should address the issue of social inequality. Social inequality should not be there, because social inequality can make people to rise up and stage a what? A revolution. Then they should recognize the power of the people. Leaders should recognize the power of the people. However much the nobles and the clergy were great in everything, in terms of resources, land, and everything, but the power of the people, the 23 million peasants, because their grievances were not solved, made them to rise up and stage a what? A revolution. So leaders should try to should try to recognize the power of the people. That if the people are having grievances, even if they are at a very low level, their grievances should be what? Should be solved. Without solving, people will rise up and stage a what? A revolution. Another one, a well-informed population can help bring about good governance. Leaders should understand that a well-informed population, as it happened in France, that the philosophers The philosophers like Voltaire, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, Montesquieu, who were well informed, they wrote ideas concerning about change. They wrote ideas concerning about what? Change. As they wrote ideas concerning about to change, their ideas were read by so many people, and people had to stage a what? A revolution. So as the people are informed in modern day times, leaders should address their problems, because the informed citizens will tell the uninformed, and the uninformed and the informed will gather together and stage a what? A revolution. So leaders should get to know about this. Another one, power should be shared among leaders, judges, and the people. Institutions as parliament and judiciary must be respected. Powers should be shared. It is not like that happened in France, where Louis XVI had a lot of power. You remember he said that thing is illegal because I wish it. And this made people to rise up and stage a revolution. So we are saying power should be shared among judges, judiciary, parliament. This will stop a what? A revolution. Because at least people will see that really they are also catered for. There is a need for constitutional governance. One of the lessons, there's a need for constitutional governance, because it was lack of a constitution, where in France the parliament had last sat in 1614, 175 years without the parliament what? Seated. This means that the constitution was not respected, where Louis XVI said the thing is illegal because I wish it. So we are saying, to avoid the same situation, constitutional governance should be called for. Leaders must avoid favoritism and promote unity in all areas of society. Favoritism, the issue of favoring one class against the other, should come to an what? To an end. Because it was favoritism that made members of the third estate to rise up against the nobles and the what? And the clergy. So through this is a great lesson leaders should learn and avoid the same mistakes. Another one, the role of women in society. That women deserve equal education, because we are realizing that women also can lead to change. As we see in the French Revolution of 1789, there was the marching of women to Versailles, demanding for the decrease in the price of bread. This meant that women also played a great role. And this means that equal education, even in modern times, should be given to women and what? Men. Because when equal education is given, we can see even women bringing changes in the what? In the country. Then political disagreement should be solved with dialogue. In a situation where members are conflicting, political disagreement should be solved with dialogue, where members should sit and negotiate to solve the what? The problem. It was the lack of dialogue, where Louis XVI, when he called the Estates General Meeting, he failed to agree with members of the third what? Estate. They went and sat in the tennis court. They said, we are not going to move from here, except bayonet will make us to move from here. And this caused the French what? Revolution. So dialogue, sitting with your enemy, is very important, and you negotiate if you are to solve problem. Another one, leaders should effect economic reforms. We believe by this time, failure to bring economic reforms, like building great employment opportunities for people, made people in France to rise up. You remember the economic crisis, made people to rise up and stage a revolution. So leaders should understand that failure to bring economic reforms can make people to rise up. So in this, as a lesson, leaders should come up with great economic reforms to solve people's problems, and this will help stop the problem of the revolution. Then there is a need for transparent governance. Transparent governance where leaders should be transparent. What they do must be seen without practicing in corruption and maladministration. This will solve the what? The problem. Because in France, it was lack of transparent leaders. Like Louis XVI was easily influenced by the beautiful Marie Antoinette. And this made the people to rise up and stage a what? A revolution. Every child, whether rich or poor, should be given access to quality education, because we realize that the poor people from the peasant group staged a what? A revolution. So if people are given equal education, they can, even if they are poor, they can bring a great change in form of innovations, technology and everything, and this will develop a country from one level to another one level. Then, journalists should be allowed to investigate and report the truth. We are saying today, journalists should be allowed to report the what? The truth. Because it was lack of freedom of expression that made the French to stage a revolution. So in modern times, to avoid the revolution, journalists should be allowed to investigate and report the truth. When they investigate and